Welcome to Dominate Your Day podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who want to make a difference in the workplace. We believe each person is unique and has a purpose they can live out every day and make an impact in the world. Here at Dominate Your Day podcast, we hear stories from leaders who have used their unique talents to transform themselves and their companies from the inside out.
All right, so welcome to Dominate Your Day. I am excited to have here with me today David Feldman. David has an interesting background as he is in his current role right now of helping individuals with their personal brand, but he kind of came there in a different way. So welcome to the show, David. We're so glad
Thank
to
you.
have you here today. And can you just tell a little bit? When I was reading your bio, it was like, okay, I started out from finance, as an analyst, wasn't very happy. What was going on then? What happened?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. When I graduated from college, I graduated with a degree in finance, and I jumped in as an analyst. I had dreams of, climbing the corporate ladder and, being the CEO or the CFO or whatever. I was gonna kind of have that corner office, and I actually spent 13 years in finance. So I worked for companies like Goldman Sachs, Micron, traveled all over the country, world, honestly, and got to do some really cool things. But the problem is it just wasn't, after about 10 years, I just realized, sitting in a cubicle, like working for the man, it just wasn't my thing. And I just would sit in these meetings and just think, what am I doing here? Or, I'd be driving to work every morning on my commute. What am I doing with my life? I don't want to, wake up when I'm 65 or 70 and think I just sat at a desk for 30 years. I don't know. It just didn't sound appealing. So we took kind of a big leap, and my wife and I, we sold our house. We had a nice house in a nice neighborhood, and all of our friends and probably some of our family thought we were crazy. Like, what are you doing? And we just sold our house, took our kids. I have two kids. They were young at the time, and we just went to Europe. We just started traveling around Europe.
I love that you did that. I think so many people dream of doing that kind of thing, but they don't do it. And they kind of just, and it's like, do you want to take the risk and do something like that? Or are you going to take the consequences of not doing that? So talk to me about that.
I was going to say that's kind of true because I was, a lot of people think that something like this is very risky, which in a way, I guess it is. But to me, I was evaluating it just kind of like you said, like the risk, like what is the risk? Like the risk here is I go to Europe, I take a year to kind of figure things out, try and start my own thing, do something different, and hopefully I'll find something and enjoy my life more. Or the other risk, other alternative is I stay in my job and I just continue to be unhappy. And to me, that seemed like a bigger risk. Like it seemed like a bigger risk to stay. And so, even though it on the outside it seems very unconventional, going and leaving and taking that time to kind of figure things out and like just get out of where I was trapped, um, seemed like the less risky move. And ultimately, it did turn out to be the best decision I mean, career wise and, just life wise, one of the best decisions I ever made.
Well, so talk to us about that because there's people right now listening. They're either at the gym or jogging or driving down the road and they're listening to your story and they're saying, why can't I do that? Why am I just still doing? We know from Gallup that 7 out of 10 people right now are not happy in their jobs and that we get a lot of quiet quitting going on. There's a lot, but people are just being miserable about being miserable instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do something about this. So it sounded like you had a good support system with your wife, right? Did that help a lot?
That did help. It really helped that my wife, yeah, that's a big, huge part of it, honestly, because my wife is 1,000% supportive, always up for an adventure, and she was willing to support me she hated seeing me unhappy. She knew, I came home and probably complained to her a lot. So she knew that I wasn't happy. And so she was like, "Yeah, let's just do something. Like we've got the money, we've got some money in savings, we'll be fine." And she had the confidence in me to, that I would figure it out. And so yeah, so we jump. But I agree with you. Like it's hard, like thinking of other people, and I tell people, people ask me all the time, like, "How did you do that?" Like, and it is, you just got to do it. I mean, that's the thing is, you just gotta like get fed up enough to where you're like, I can't take this anymore. And I remember, just sitting in my meetings and just sitting at work, and not that I enjoyed the people that I worked with. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were great people, but just the whole machine, I was very not happy with. And it was hard. I think the one thing too is for people out there, I can't remember what it's called, but it's this kind of this, and you're probably familiar with it. This I forget what they call it, but it's this basically this the fact that people live at this level where it's bad, but it's not bad enough for them to do something. So whereas if something actually bad happened that made your situation worse, it would actually be a good thing because it would force you to change. So like a lot of people will stay in their job even though they hate it, but they just stay there because it's just good enough to not do anything about it. Whereas if they were to get fired, they would think, yeah, this is the worst thing that happened to me. But ultimately, that getting fired would take you down below a level to where you would be forced to make a change, and then it would change you into something way better. And so I feel like a lot of people are living in this state where they're like just high enough over, you know, not terrible, but still way down below happy, and they just kind of exist there. And to me, that's a terrible place to exist.
Well, it's kind of like what I'm hearing you say, David, and I can't wait to unfold the story, unwrap the story, but you were meant for more. You were meant for something else and you knew that. You just didn't know what that was. And I think that's the number one thing is I talked to a lot of corporate leaders and coaches, and I think the number one thing I keep hearing is they're listening to somebody else's story for them. They're not listening to the story that was, who they are and how unique they are. So how did you get your family to Europe? You're having fun, you're traveling, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I kind of need to make some money too. How did you get into your next career? How did that start?
So I had always been, I would say the word I would use is entrepreneurial. I've always kind of been interested in marketing and just different things, more creative things. And I dabbled a little bit in online marketing and that sort of thing, like while I was just kind of on the side over the years. I hadn't really done anything major, but I kind of dabbled in it. So when we were out traveling around Europe, I basically the thought came, we had some savings, but I wanted to start making money to supplement it so that we wouldn't just blow through all our savings super fast. So um, I I found this website called Fiverr, and some people are probably familiar with it, but it's basically an online freelancing platform. It started out like what would you do for $5, and but it's really evolved into like a more of a um, freelancing platform like Upwork or something like that. Anyways, I thought, okay, well, I'm a financial analyst. I'll do your Excel modeling, or I'll build you a PowerPoint or something like that. So I offered those services on Fiverr, and I didn't get very many hits actually. I didn't get very many orders. People weren't really ordering. But Fiverr has this cool thing where you can see how many orders are in people's queue. So if you're looking at a seller on Fiverr, you can see how many orders they have in their queue. So I thought to myself, okay, well, who's making money here on Fiverr? Who has tons of orders in their queue? And I started digging around, and I found these people in a category called brainstorming, where they would brainstorm names for you. If you were starting a business, like what should the name of my business be? Or I'm writing a book, what should the title of my book be? And I saw that these people had like 10, 15 orders, 20 orders in their queue. And I was like, I can brainstorm. Like, that's not too hard. And so I I set up a gig, I made a video, and everybody was offering like 5 names for $5, and I said, "Oh, I'll give you 6 names for $5." And yeah, it just started taking off. I started getting orders for brainstorming, and I started making, I don't know, 5, 6, $700 a month doing that. And that got me thinking again. I was like, okay, well, this is cool. Who else is making money on Fiverr? And that's when I found copywriting. There was this category called copywriting, which at the time I didn't even know what copywriting was. I mean, I knew what copywriting was, but I didn't know that people called it copywriting. And I saw that these copywriters had, again, 10, 20 orders in their queue. And I was like, okay, geez, that makes sense. Everybody needs content constantly. Like, it makes sense that there's a high demand here. And I thought again, I was like, I could be a copywriter. Like, I can write this stuff. And so I made a video and I put it out there. And yeah, the orders just started rolling in. People started liking the work that I was doing and just started gaining momentum. And it just went crazy. And I got to a point where I had to hire other copywriters to just help me keep up with the demand. And that was the initial, I guess, uh, genesis of what ultimately turned into a whole, I guess, marketing business.
That's okay. So here's two things that I want to make sure people don't slide over. You just easily created a video and wrote. You just easily did that, right? It wasn't hard for you. So that's where the passion meets the talent, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I could do that. Whereas somebody that doesn't have that gift of writing they would rather put, needles in their eyes than try to write something or do a video. So take me back when you were a child. There was something in your past when you got to work on creative projects. You might have writing at school or something. Do you recall anything?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Usually there's a story of if that we got to pull out of there. Maybe you wrote something or created something for a class, or you did something for a teacher, or you got to work on a project,
I'll say this, um, and I don't know if this is, I have a specific example after this, but this is something that just immediately comes to my mind. Um, I think I probably attribute maybe a healthy sense of self-confidence to my parents, like maybe probably to my mom. Um, she was just always very supportive. Always, she always, and I think a lot of moms are like this, but she always just thought that I could do anything. She always expected me to do anything. She always allowed me to just like do and create. And, like if I would come to my mom and say, "Hey mom, I'm gonna like sew a blanket." She'd say, "Okay." She'd say, "Okay, cool. Yeah, here. Like, let's sew a blanket." And she would say, go find a pattern or go find some fabric and like, here's the sewing machine, do it." And like that was just, she would just always like, if I ever said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," she'd say, "Okay, yeah." And even when I said like I was gonna go to Europe like later in my life, I was like, "I'm gonna take my family to go to Europe." She's like, "Cool, do it. Awesome, you can do it." And so I would attribute probably, I don't know if there's a specific example, but if I had to attribute something, it might be that. And so I've always had this, I guess, healthy sense of self-confidence where, you know, I've never really thought that I couldn't do anything per se. Like if somebody, so if I came across copywriting and I didn't really know what it was, but I thought, hey, I can do that. Brainstorming, hey, I can do that. Somebody, and then as you start copywriting for people, and that's how my business grew. You know, I started copywriting for people and they're like, "Oh, you wrote the copy. For my Facebook ads, can you run Facebook ads?" I was like, in my head, I'm like, "I've never really done that," but I'd just say, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." And I would go figure it out and offer that service. And then that was just another service I offered. And then they'd say, "Hey, can you build my website?" And I'd say, sure, I can build a website. And then I would either learn or go find somebody that could do it for me, and that that was one. And then I guess specifically, I did a 30-day challenge when this was back probably in the early 2000s. It was, or mid 2000s. It was when, the internet was really, and internet marketing was really kind of coming on. And I was just young, fresh out of school, out of college. And my my wife's sister was a online marketer, and she was doing well. And I looked at her and I was like, dang, that's cool what she's doing. And she told me about this 30-day challenge that this guy was hosting. He was a digital marketing guru. His premise was basically, if you can make $1 online, then, like, if you can make $1 in 30 days online, then geez, why can't you make a million? Basically, was his kind of hook or premise. So I did that. I did that program, that challenge, that 30-day challenge, and you had to do a lot of different, like, email campaigns. Like, he walked you through everything, like how to write your landing page, or how to do this, or how to write an email campaign to launch a product, and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of learned that through that program. So I think that was maybe I look at that as like one of my major, like, when I found copywriting, I had already, like, a few years ago, I had done a little 30-day project where I kind of learned a lot of that stuff, or was at least introduced to it. So that gave me the confidence to think, like, oh, I can do this.
And I think that that is it, you had the gift, but you also had that kind of file in your brain of, oh, I've done that. I can do this. And then you figured out Facebook ads, and then okay, now let's figure out web copy. Okay, let's figure out funnels. And the message here is there's a lot of people in corporate that want to go on their own, and marketing online and digital marketing is so different from a corporate marketing, and just learning, but it's learning it and being open to it, and then having the gift of doing it. So when you went on that trip, how long ago was that compared to where you are now with your business?
So that was back in 2014. So it was almost 10 years ago when we went to
Wow.
Europe.
So now talk to us about your where your business is today and what your how it's evolved from copywriting to personal branding. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It has been a pretty fun evolution. And for anybody on this, listening, that's an entrepreneur, you understand, and I'm sure, Dan, the ups and downs of, like, being on your own versus, like, a kind of a steady corporate job. There's pros and cons to both, and but it has been an evolution. It's been a lot of fun. But so copywriting kind of led into, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people would ask me to do things, or they, and so I kind of just add those little things, add, running ads for people, or websites, or funnels, or even like SEO, or all this kind of stuff. So I actually, another thing that I did, I didn't mention this, but a little caveat that I didn't mention was, we were in Europe, and the Fiverr was starting to blow up, but it hadn't quite blown up enough. And so I was like, I should probably go back and get a job. So that's when I went and I worked at Micron. I got a job as a senior financial analyst at Micron in Boise, Idaho. And but literally, like, as soon as I started at Micron, my Fiverr just that's when it really, like, exploded. And so it was like I was almost working two full-time jobs, but I had a 2-year commitment at Boise, at Micron, because they relocated me there. And so I worked for 2 years basically doing that, but then at night I would work another full-time job on my own. Anyways, it got to a point where I could finally quit. I was making more, online than I was making at my job. So as soon as I possibly could, when I hit the 2 years, I quit. And that opened up some time to do other stuff, because I was like, geez, I got an extra, like, 50 hours a week. I can do whatever I want.
We're gonna fill it all, right?
I started an e-commerce store that went pretty well.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. We were selling, like, jewelry and clothing and stuff online, and built that up to probably about 30 or $40,000 a month. And that I learned a lot of stuff there too. Anyways, so I had Fiverr, which was going good. I had people working and doing that. I had my e-commerce store, and there was a guy that I worked with from Alaska, and I worked with a lot of he was a web developer, so I did a lot of his websites, wrote the copy for him and stuff. We became friends, and we started a full service digital marketing agency because we could help people with e-commerce and copy, and he was the guru with like websites and SEO and all this kind of stuff, web hosting. So we started that, and it turned out that it wasn't like the best fit, like partner wise. Even though we were good friends, it just wasn't the best fit partner wise. So that was kind of short lived. But I picked up a lot of skills actually there, like web development and all that sort of stuff. And I took that and kind of went out on my own. And that's kind of when Mug Branding was born, because I actually started doing some work with after so Feldman Weber was the name of our agency. After that split, I started doing some work with some clients, maybe clients similar to people you work with. Like these were executives or like high net worth individuals, like business owners that had really been very successful in their careers, and or they were successful business owners of, one or multiple 8, 9, 10 figure businesses, but they'd never taken the time to kind of step out and establish their brand. Like you see people like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or these people that kind of step out and like from behind the company and showcase their own personal brand. So I was kind of found a little niche of helping people do that, people that were um, in these positions but had never really like put themselves out there. So I started helping them, and that's kind of how Mug Branding came about, because Mug is, like your mug, your face, because it was more personalized versus for a company. And we really actually the I would say the premise of or the foundation of what I do is based on the idea that we live in an age right now where everybody is bombarded with marketing and just everything, literally everywhere you turn, it's in front of your face on your phone every second of the day almost. You're just bombarded. And we built on the foundation that people connect with people more than they connect with businesses. This idea, because I worked with this gentleman, and he said that, I used to spend millions and millions of dollars like promoting my business and like running ads, like, hey, buy my product. Like my business would say, hey, buy our products, or we're having a sale, yada yada. He said, as soon as I started actually promoting myself, my personal brand, and putting myself out there and just kind of providing value and just kind of putting myself out there, he said that actually like tripled what I was spending, like the ROI tripled versus what I was just spending when I just tried to promote my business, because people were connecting with me, and then they just say, "Oh, I like you, so I'll buy your stuff," type of thing. Basically, I mean, subconsciously, that's really what's happening. They're like, "I like Elon Musk, so I'm gonna buy a Tesla." It's like that's just how it works. And so we started kind of helping people do that, and yeah, so that's kind of where I am. And
Yeah, and I think that's so smart, and I think more and more we were talking about this before we started recording today, but more and more of the corporate leaders I'm working with, we're working on their personal brand within their companies because that will follow them wherever they go. And the days of just your title being your brand is not that. Just like you were talking about the client you had that decided to stop talking about his company and start talking about himself. Because when you think about it, everything's a commodity. So how do you break through? How do you break through all the bots, all the everything we're in this age we're in right now? And I thought it'd be kind of fun, since you are kind of in this branding space right now, working with individuals. I'm assuming you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders and coaches and people like that. Tell me, what is the number one mistake you're seeing that people are making when they're thinking about their brand?
I think a big mistake, this is maybe one of the biggest mistakes I see, is people are turning their brand over to somebody else to, I guess, automate it and or just push content out. If content is not authentic and genuine, people are savvy enough to pick that up and know it. So like if you're a business owner, say you own a multi-million dollar business and you just hire one of your interns or something to just post on your Instagram and your Facebook or your LinkedIn every day, just like an article or this or that, it's not going to do anything because people don't resonate. People can see through that. Um, and I even found like when I was helping people, you know, even, I mean, I'm a professional writer, I would say, and pretty good at like, I'm also an entrepreneur too. Like I'm pretty savvy and like I can, I'm not the dullest knife in the drawer. And but when I would try to write for like, let's say I had a client specifically that he owned multiple like 8, 9 figure businesses, very successful, very kind of prominent in the community, or I should say people knew about him and they knew that he was super successful. And they just wanted to be inside his head. Like so when he would post a post, like on LinkedIn, I'd help him kind of post a post in his words, it would explode. People loved it. Tons of comments, like it would go super well. If he was busy for a month or something trying to like do stuff and he's like, David, just write a post for me, put it out there. And I tried to, even when I tried to like mimic him and like even like kind of think, I spent a lot of time with him trying to think like, what would he say? It still just wasn't genuine. It wasn't him. And so they kind of like, so that was where I learned actually when I work with people and help them like write their stuff on LinkedIn or do different things, you know, I charge kind of a lot of money and people are like, well, don't you write it for me? I'm like, no, actually, I don't write it for you. There's a lot of ghostwriters that'll charge you money and they'll write stuff for you. But that's what I consider a huge mistake. It's like, it won't work. It will literally, it could actually hurt your brand because it will, you'll end up just falling down into the herd. You won't stand out. It's not uniquely your voice, your thoughts. And so I think a lot of people, because they think they're too busy to and they want to hand it off to other people, which I mean you can at some level, but you just got to be a very you got to walk a very fine line there.
And I agree with that. And I've recently turned the corner on that myself with some things I'm working on. And I think Threads has helped me really just get out there and just talk and not have the feel like I have to do a picture or I have to show a video or, just get out and just talk and share what's on my mind. And I think it's just getting in that habit of sharing that and developing your brand that way. We don't know where Threads is going. I hope it doesn't get like the others where it becomes more everybody's marketing. Right now it's just that green space, which is kind of fun. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think Threads is a fantastic opportunity right now for I've seen the life cycle of social media platforms and the people that are the early adopters, the people that get on and when they're really they're pushing out, getting your content pushed out is a lot easier because they're just trying to get it out there. Because yeah. So I think Threads is a fantastic opportunity right now. Like you said, it's a big, wide open blue ocean full. A lot of people are jumping on, but they're going to be, if you can get on there and kind of establish yourself, I think that's a great place.
And it seems more authentic. Like you don't have to worry about hashtags and you don't have to worry about it's just get out there and share one or two sentences of something on your mind today. Um, and it's that old, document, don't create kind of thinking. So as we get ready round up, I think the other hot thing, and I always am a futurist, I love to talk about what's coming and where we are right now. So as your business has evolved in the last 10 years and now you're doing a lot of branding, personal branding, how are you factoring AI with your client?
AI is definitely taking out I would say what I would consider the lower level copy, meaning like if you just have a quick, update email or like an email campaign or email series of like welcoming people to your They just bought something, welcome, or they just subscribe to your newsletter, hey, welcome. Like little things, or like maybe a little bio or something. Um, it's definitely taken that out because it's actually taken a massive toll on my Fiverr. Um, ChatGPT came out, my Fiverr business took a nosedive because that was where I had copywriters, and we were doing a lot of lower level, just lower tier type jobs like that. I don't think AI though has come to a point, or at least people aren't skilled enough generally to get it to the point where it can write significant copy, like effective copy for like a major like landing page or a website or something where you have to really think through it, be detailed, have it in your voice, and or like so in that way, it's kind of helped me position myself personally as like, the I compare it to this way. Like AI is really good at doing the Walmart, Target copy. But if you're looking for like Louis Vuitton, like Ferrari copy, it's not there yet. And so that's why there's a place for people like me there still.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like you said, if you can, I like your analogy of the Target Walmart, you got to get something done and dirty out that it doesn't need a lot of strategy behind it. But when you've got to develop a whole campaign strategy and you've got to develop the voice, AI is a tool. It's not the end all. I've tried to just say, okay, let's see what it can do. And it wasn't my voice, and it wasn't, so the need for copywriters, the need for writers to write really good prompts, really good, to help augment that, I think is great. But as you said, it will continue evolving. Whereas personal branding is getting huge right now because of bots, because of AI. And so it's being in that space that you're in right now is going to be huge. That's where all the transformation's going on.
I was just gonna say, I think it's really valuable to familiarize yourself with AI, get better at the prompts, get like just be aware of what people are using it for, because there is a lot of places where you can plug it into your business. Like there are a lot of ways that I think people just don't even realize that people are using prompts and different ways to like just incorporate AI in to like generate a lot of these, yeah, like just take care of a lot of things, or even just as a tool to help you do the bigger things.
And go faster. Yeah, definitely go faster. So I know we have a hard stop. So I want to make sure that, David, there's nothing else that's on your mind as we get ready to close out that you'd like to share with the audience as we get ready to close out. I think it's been a fun kind of peek underneath the curtain of what it looks like to just step out and take risk and start your own business, and then evolved into passion areas of writing and creative, um, and then try things, test and learn things, and say, yeah, that didn't work, but I can bring that now with me into this, and being able to build and grow your business. So anything else we didn't discuss that's on your mind right now as we get ready to close out that you want to make sure our listeners hear?
I don't think so. Other than just to kind of rehash like what you said. I mean, I agree with you that looking back, I would just say taking the risk is as long as it's not a completely crazy risk, but generally taking the risk is well worth it, and I think everybody should do it. I mean, I don't think people, like I said, I think people just get stuck in this zone where they're unhappy, but they're not unhappy enough to do something about it. And I just like to push people and be like, no, come on, like go. Like one of my favorite it's not my favorite movies, but it's one of my favorite quotes from a movie is, and he's probably quoting somebody else, obviously, but it's this like New Year's Day movie. You know these movies where they used to have like all the celebrities and like I can't even. It's like a hodgepodge of them, like a spit like little things in their life. And there was the New Year's Day movie with all the celebrities like 15 years ago that came out. And this guy gets up and he's like, "My mom used to say, what can you do? Like if you could do," or maybe his dad said that. If my dad used to say, "If you could do anything and you knew you wouldn't fail, like what would you do?" And then it's like, then go do it. And that like, I literally, that's like my life motto, because it's like, if you know you can't fail, like, what would you do, you know? And so why not just go do things? And the thing is, you will fail, but who cares, you know? Just go do it.
Absolutely. And look at the benefit of you now are 10 years out almost, of your business, and you've been able to soar in new heights and write amazing copy for people and win some awards. And who knew, if you hadn't stopped and done that. So hopefully today this will encourage people out there that are thinking about taking a risk. Just start with a tiny action item and make that happen. And we'd love to hear about that. And David, how can people reach you if they want to learn more about your copywriting or your digital marketing?
Yeah, sorry, mug branding. So MUGBR branding, mugbranding.com is my website. That's where you can find me and email me, or you can email me at David at mugbranding. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, David Feldman, owner of Mug Branding.
Thank you so much. We'll keep you posted as this comes out. Okay, you take
Dana,
care.
thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it was really great talking to you.
You have been listening to Dominate Your Day podcast. If you're ready to transform your life and workplace from the inside out, go to danawilliamsco.com and set up a discovery call. We would love to connect with you and equip you with some helpful resources. Thank you for listening today, and please take a moment to subscribe to Dominate Your Day wherever you listen.